Marked by horror and confusion, the Clutter family murders shocked the quiet town of Holcomb, Kansas, and soon, the entire nation. What began as a rumor about hidden money led to one of the most brutal and senseless crimes in American history. 4 innocent lives were taken in a single night, leaving behind fear, sorrow, and unanswered questions. Today, we explore the chilling events of 1959 that inspired a best-selling book and forever changed the true crime world. Born on May 24, 1911, Herbert "Herb" Clutter was a successful and well-known farmer living in western Kansas. He was respected in his community and had built a comfortable life for himself and his family through hard work. Herb had 4 children and was 48 years old at the time of his death. His 2 oldest daughters, Eviana and Beverly, had already grown up and moved out of the house to begin their own lives as adults. They were no longer living at home. His wife, Bonnie Clutter, was born on January 7, 1914. Bonnie had been struggling for a long time with serious health issues. People in the community believed that Bonnie was suffering from clinical depression, which affected her mental health. Along with that, she reportedly dealt with other physical health problems, especially after giving birth to her children. However, some later questioned whether her condition was truly as severe as it had been portrayed. Herb and Bonnie still lived at home with their 2 younger children, Nancy and Kenyon. Nancy was 16 years old, and Kenyon was 15. Both of them were students at Holcomb High School. Nancy May Clutter, born on January 2, 1943, was just 16 years old. A junior at Holcomb High School, she was an outstanding student, known for her good grades, musical talent, and kind nature. Nancy played the clarinet, loved baking and sewing, and was admired by many younger girls in town and were well liked by their classmates and teachers. Kenyon Neal Clutter, born on August 28, 1944. He was the Clutters' youngest child and only son, a quiet, smart kid who loved working on his pickup truck, even though he was too young to drive it. Kenyon enjoyed woodworking and was also active in the 4-H club. At the same time, 2 men named Richard Dick Hickock and Perry Edward Smith were recently released from the Kansas State Penitentiary. They were both former inmates who had served time in prison. While in prison, Hickock had met another inmate named Floyd Wells. Interestingly, Floyd had once worked as a farmhand for Herb Clutter. During their time together in prison, Wells told Hickock something that sparked a dangerous plan. He claimed that Herb Clutter kept a lot of money in a safe at his farmhouse. This information caught Hickock's attention. He started thinking about how he could steal that money. In reality, though, Floyd's claim was completely wrong. Herb Clutter did not have a safe in his house, and he didn't keep large amounts of cash. He preferred to do all his business using checks, not cash, which meant there wasn't any big stash of money lying around. But Hickock believed the story and became convinced that robbing the Clutter family would be easy and life-changing. He began to create a plan. His idea was to steal the money and then escape to Mexico to start a new life. To help carry out this plan, Hickock contacted Perry Smith, a former cellmate whom he trusted. He asked Perry to join him in committing the robbery. Together, they decided to go forward with the crime. According to Truman Capote, who wrote the famous non-fiction book In Cold Blood about this case, Hickock thought the plan was simple and foolproof. He called it a cinch, the perfect score. He believed that everything would go smoothly and that they would get away with the money without any problems. Unfortunately, the reality turned out to be much more tragic. Murder. On the night of November 14, 1959, Richard Hickock and Perry Smith began a deadly journey across Kansas. Driving more than 400 miles, their destination was the quiet farming town of Holcomb. Their target was the Clutter family. Driven by greed and desperation, the 2 men believed this single robbery could change their lives. In the early hours of November 15, 1959, Hickock and Smith arrived in Holcomb under the cover of darkness. They located the Clutter home and found an unlocked door, slipping inside silently while the family slept. They searched for the rumored safe, but quickly realized there was no such fortune. Still, they continued with their plan, unwilling to leave empty-handed. What happened next was both senseless and horrifying. The pair made the decision to kill all 4 members of the Clutter family: Herb, his wife Bonnie, and their 2 children, Nancy and Kenyon. The peaceful home became the scene of a brutal massacre, and by morning, a loving family had been destroyed, all because of a false rumor and a few stolen belongings. As the intruders moved through the home, they approached each family member one by one, binding and isolating them in different rooms before the final moments unfolded. Bonnie was bound with her hands tied in front of her, gagged, and then carefully placed in her bed in an upstairs room, her vulnerability amplified by the strange calm of the setting. Nancy, in contrast, had her hands tied behind her back, but was not gagged, an unusual detail that stood out. She too was returned to her bed, as if the attackers had a specific plan in mind. Meanwhile, Herb and Kenyon were led to the basement, separated from the others. The deliberate placement of each family member suggested a chilling intention behind every move the intruders made. After sneaking into the house, Hickock and Smith woke the family and began separating them. They forced Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon upstairs into a bathroom, while Herb was taken to his office on the first floor. The intruders searched for a safe, but found nothing. Frustrated, they brought the family members out of the bathroom one by one. Kenyon was gagged, tied up, and at first secured to a steam pipe in the furnace room. Later, they moved him to a nearby playroom, where he was retied and placed on a couch with a pillow behind his head, perhaps a small sign of twisted mercy. Herb was also tied and gagged and laid on a mattress box on the cold floor. While Smith stayed with Herb, Hickock returned upstairs to search again for the safe. When he came back empty-handed, tensions rose. The two men had already agreed not to leave witnesses. They discussed what to do, and then the violence began. In a shocking act of violence, Perry Smith attacked Herb Clutter first. He cut his throat and then shot him in the head. After that, he went to the playroom, where he shot young Kenyon while he sat on a couch. Upstairs, Nancy was killed as she lay in her bed, followed by Bonnie, who was shot in the side of the head in her room. Each family member was killed with a single shotgun blast. Herb was the only one who also had a knife wound. The peaceful home had turned into a scene of horror no one could forget. Before fleeing, the killers carefully collected the spent bullet casings, erasing traces of their presence. All of this horror was committed for less than $50. The few items stolen included Kenyon's Zenith portable radio, Herb's binoculars, and some small cash, believed to be from a $60 check Herb had cashed the previous day. Known for paying by check and keeping little cash at home, Herb's empty wallet and a ransacked bedroom told the story of a senseless and brutal crime. After fleeing Kansas, Smith and Hickock continued moving until they were caught 6 weeks later, on December 30th, 1959 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thanks to a determined investigation by the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, both men were arrested and later extradited to Kansas. In the aftermath of their arrest, Perry Smith eventually confessed to the brutal murders, though he refused to sign a formal statement. He claimed that Richard Hickock was the one who shot Nancy and Bonnie Clutter, but added that he was willing to take full responsibility for all 4 killings out of compassion for Hickock's mother, who he believed would suffer deeply if her son were blamed. Hickock, on the other hand, stuck to a different version of events. He consistently denied any direct involvement in the murders and insisted that Smith carried out the killings alone. The trial was held at the Finney County Courthouse in Garden City, drawing considerable public attention. Despite their conflicting stories, the evidence presented in court led to the same conclusion for both men. They were each convicted on 4 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. After years of legal proceedings and failed appeals, their executions were carried out at the Kansas State Prison near Lansing on April 14, 1965. Hickock was the first to be hanged, with the execution taking place at 12:41 a.m. Smith followed shortly after at 1:19 a.m. Their deaths marked the grim conclusion of a crime that had shocked the nation. The Clutter family's funeral was a heartbreaking event that brought together nearly 1,000 mourners, a reflection of the deep sorrow felt throughout the close-knit community of Garden City, Kansas. Held at the First Methodist Church, the service overflowed with people who had known and loved the family, or who simply felt the weight of such a senseless tragedy. The church pews filled quickly, and many stood in silence, sharing in the collective grief that had gripped the town. Following the emotional service, a large group accompanied the family to their final resting place at Valley View Cemetery, situated on the town's northern edge. There, Herb and Bonnie Clutter were buried side by side, united even in death beneath a shared double headstone. Just to the left of her parents lay Nancy, the vibrant teenager whose future had once seemed so full of promise. Kenyon, the youngest of the family, was buried on the right, resting beneath his own headstone. The arrangement painted a haunting picture of the once whole family, now separated by fate but joined in eternal rest. The cemetery became not just a place of mourning, but a symbol of a community forever changed by an unthinkable loss in the cold blood. Before the killers were caught, famous author Truman Capote heard about the shocking murders of the Clutter family. He became very interested in the case and decided to travel to Kansas to learn more and write a book about it. He didn't go alone. He brought his close childhood friend, Harper Lee, who would later become famous for writing To Kill a Mockingbird. The two worked together as a team, speaking with local people in the town and the police officers who were investigating the murders. Capote and Lee took thousands of pages of notes as they tried to understand the crime, the victims, and the men who committed the murders. 6 weeks after the killings, the two murderers, Richard Hickock and Perry Smith, were finally arrested. They were later put on trial, found guilty, and sentenced to death. In 1965, both were executed by hanging at the Kansas State Prison. Even though the case had ended, Capote continued to work on his book. He wanted to make sure he told the full story, not just of the crime itself, but of the lives behind it. It took him 6 years to finish writing the book, which he titled In Cold Blood. When the book was finally published in 1966, it became a huge hit. Readers were fascinated by how Capote told the story, not just like a news report, but almost like a novel, with deep emotions, characters, and details. It was one of the first books ever written in the true crime style, where real events are told with the drama and detail of fiction. In Cold Blood quickly became one of the most popular true crime books ever written. People couldn't stop talking about it, and it was even turned into movies and documentaries. As of 2016, it is the second best-selling true crime book in publishing history. The only book that has sold more is Helter Skelter, written in 1974 by Vincent Bugliosi about the Charles Manson murders. Thanks to In Cold Blood, Truman Capote changed the way people thought about true crime stories, and the Clutter Family Murders became one of the most well-known cases in American history. The Clutter Family Murders shocked a nation, and through Truman Capote's groundbreaking work in Cold Blood, their story continues to haunt generations. More than just a crime tale, it explored the human side of both victims and killers. With Harper Lee's help, Capote gave the world a chilling, unforgettable look into the dark side of the American dream. Even decades later, the Clutter case remains a powerful reminder of how one false rumor led to unimaginable tragedy.